Pastor, doesn't science disprove the Bible?
Isn't Genesis just a fairy tale?
Is God for real? Did he really create everything in 6 literal days?
Didn't God just use the Big Bang?
Why is there death and suffering? Do you really believe the Bible?
Didn't man evolve from apes?
For answers to these questions and more, stand by for Believing the Bible.
Welcome to Believing the Bible. This is Scott Lane with Ed Salzadell, Dr. Carl Williams, all directors of the San Antonio Bible-Based Science Association. We are here to reassure you can believe the Bible from the very first verse. Today we're going to talk about the question, is Christmas a pagan holiday? In many ways, I see our culture today treat it as a pagan holiday.
It's definitely
Party time.
Yes.
Party time, yeah. They did a study a while ago to find out how much during Christmas specials that they actually mentioned Christ on major networks. Mm-hmm. The answer was less than 4% of the time.
Yeah.
That much, huh?
That much. Ancillary to this, was Jesus born on December 25, or was that date really borrowed from a pagan holiday?
I'll go along with that.
Does the Bible give us specific dates? It does not give us specific dates. Now, 2 perspectives on this. When I was reading pieces by Bodie Hodge out of Answers in Genesis, he pointed that it may have come from the celebration from the holiday Saturnalia, which was the Roman festival for the god Saturn. It ran from about December 17 to 23. Saturn, the Roman god, is analogous to the Greek god Kronos. And this Greek god Kronos may run all the way back to a reverence for Noah and his grandsons, to citing actual biblical characters that have been... Well, that's one perspective. But Carl, you found a different perspective looking at different material from CMI.
Yeah, CMI had a couple of little videos and references to Julius Africanus, who's an early Christian writer who lived about AD 2025. Well, he wrote this stuff about AD 2025. And he, along with some others, reckoned that Jesus was conceived on March 25th. You know, as far as that goes, how did they come to that conclusion? And what he did was he looked at what called an integral year. In the Jewish custom, every prophet was deemed to have been conceived on the same day. In other words, obviously not the same year, but the same day that he died. So his day of death and his conception date were the same, just years apart. In the case of Jesus, his death date is estimated by the Jewish calendar to be somewhere close to our 25th of March. Now, obviously we celebrate it on different days each year, which varies with the Jewish calendar because we have Easter on different Sundays, don't we, every year. But as far as the integral year, if you say that he died on the 25th of March, and that was the day of their conception also, and you count out 9 months from that, you come up with somewhere around 25 December as the date of the actual birth. So that is how the birthday, 25th of December, was established, and the church started celebrating that somewhere around 275. Now, the Saturnalia, which is the Roman holiday, was not instituted by the emperor, whose name I'm forgetting right now. That didn't happen into AD 275 or 4. In other words, several decades later, that holiday was made special holiday. In other words, it was established as a holiday for the Romans, specifically to kind of make problems for the Christians. In other words, add this pagan holiday to their Christian holiday to water down the Christian part of the holiday. So it was actually in reverse, if this research is correct, that the Christian holiday was established first, and then the Roman holiday was kind of imposed upon it, even though it may have been something of a pagan holiday in decades or centuries past. It was not formally installed in the Roman calendar until 274.
You're listening to Believing the Bible. This is Scott Lane with Ed Salzadell and Dr. Carl Williams. If you would like to learn more, go to sabsa.org. That is sabbsa.org. Today we're talking about, is Christmas a pagan holiday? From what you were just describing, it may not have started out as that.
Correct.
It may have moved into that. Truthfully, what I'd read earlier from Bodie Hodge with Saturnalia basically described the same thing, that originally had a biblical origin origin, but it had moved into a Roman context. Now, a whole different way of looking at this is people, and Hodge did this, and others have done this, trying to use the Bible to get a date. Now, again, the Bible doesn't give us specific dates. What it does talk about in Luke 1:26 through 37 is in the 6th month, the angel Gabriel was sent God to the city of Galilee named Nazareth to a virgin betrothed to a man whose name was Joseph, of the house of David, and the virgin's name was Mary. Now, there's an assumption here from other texts, because when she was almost immediately impregnated, whatever, by the Holy Spirit, it is from that point forward that she would meet Elizabeth and John would jump within the womb. And so there's an assumption that John was originally conceived around the first of the year or the last of the previous year, and that he was about 6 months along when he jumped in the womb, and that it would now be 9 months from that 6 months, from that 6th month when Jesus would be born. That gets us back into a March, April, May type of configuration, if that's true. But again, we're not dealing with specifics.
Right.
How bad the specifics are really gets underscored when you start looking at the fact that we know the calendar is wrong. He wasn't born in 1 AD, even though that's the structure of our calendar.
Right.
He was born somewhere between 2 BC and 7 BC. The traditional, supposedly accepted date is 4 BC, because that would have been at the end of the reign of Herod. But we're now finding evidence to show Herod might have lived on until 2 to 1 BC. Some people use astronomy, that we've got new computer programs that'll show you what the stars look like at night. And there was a convergence of stars, Rigel, Jupiter, and first occurring in Virgo, the Virgin constellation, and then a second time happening about 15 months later when these came back after Jupiter made a retrograde move in the sky for this all to come back together. Some people say, well, that the first one was Christ being born, the second one was convergence was leading the wise men. Well, incidentally, those two convergences, the first of them happened on September 11, 2 BC. There's a new date thrown out for all that. One of the things that I think comes out of all this mess is that we're not sure that December 25 is the exact correct date.
Correct.
But my question to you guys is, does that matter?
No.
It does not.
Why?
Because regardless of when his actual birth date was, the celebration of the coming of the Messiah to earth is worth celebrating. And if we have to arbitrarily pick a day to do that, so be it.
Well, what about the effect, though, that we're seeing today? Whether it was originally a pagan holiday or not, whether it had Christian roots or not. Today, it's couched in Santa Claus, in Rudolph, in Charlie Brown. My kids can't go through without seeing a Charlie Brown Christmas.
At least Charlie Brown reads from the Bible. Actually, Linus does.
Linus is the one that does it, and yes,
Linus
I watch
does.
it too on a yearly basis.
If we have all this stuff, all these presents, and all the running around that have very little to do with Christ himself, how do you keep Christ in Christmas?
That is always a challenge. And you're right. Santa Claus, which is based on a good person, St. Nicholas, has become a force in and of himself, a godlike creature.
And what did he do? He went around giving presents.
And St. Nicholas helped those out who needed help.
Right.
And that was a good thing, but it's become
Negative.
Basically, it's become a god, a false god.
That's true.
In and of itself. So that is bad when we worship Santa Claus as opposed to reminding ourselves of the true reason for the season.
And why the gifts, the intent for the gift is.
Right.
There's two things that my household tries to do to try and keep Christ in Christmas. One of them is, and most churches will offer this, is the church we go to always offers a candlelight service on Christmas Eve. And folks, that if you go to that, they're usually 45 to 50 minutes long. They recount the Christmas story from the Bible, and it gives you a focus for what that night is supposed to be. But a second way is before we open the presents on Christmas morning, and we're normally with not only our children, but now our grandchildren, grandchildren as well to do that. My wife always gives a 5-minute, and it has to be short. You're dealing with children. But it always gives a 5-minute retelling of the Christmas account, the birth of Christ, but why he came.
Right.
Because he came to save us. He came to sacrifice himself. He was giving the ultimate gift, and that's what those gifts are about.
Right.
And if we can continue to give that kind of focus to our children and our grandchildren, then it is not a pagan holiday.
Amen.
Believing the Bible now has a new way you can support our ministry and get some great gifts. For a donation of $10 or more, we will email you a copy of Repetition in the Bible by Jack Cassioni, which shows the Bible to be a self-proving document and shows God's protection of His Word over the ages. For a donation of $25 or more, we will also mail you a copy of Scott Lane's book, What If God Wrote the Bible, showing 6 things we should find in the world and in the Bible if God is the author of the Bible. To get these great gifts, send your check or money order to SABSA at 7620 Avery, Live Oak, Texas 78233. That's SABBSA at 7620 Avery Road, Live Oak, Texas 78233. This information for ordering is also on our contact page at sabsa.org. We recommend that you check out Terry Reed's book on his website at Why Should You Believe. You can get access to a whole range of Dr. Carl Williams' books on Christian historical fiction on Amazon.com. And we also recommend Scott Lane's new book, What If God Wrote the Bible, which is available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and everywhere else. Information for creation events in our area are on our website's calendar page. For more information or to schedule a presentation, go to sabsa.org or call 210-599-7240. When you go to our website, you can click on a link to our newsletter. Our website has a link for contact information on which you can order our newsletter to be emailed to you, or you can call us. Also go to whyshouldyoubelieve.com. That is Terry's website containing articles looking at current day issues from a biblical perspective. SABSA meets the second Tuesday of each month at 7 p.m. We are now meeting at Faith Lutheran Church just south of the corner of Jones Maltzberger and Thousand Oaks. There you will find biblical apologetics and creation science teaching found nowhere else in Bexar County, as well as the availability of books and videos on these important subjects. If you missed any part of this show, you can listen to this show anytime by going to the AM 630 KSLR, the Word in South Texas website. Click on KSLR Podcast, scroll down until you find Believing the Bible. Please join us again next Saturday for Believing the Bible. I'm Scott Lane, and for Terry Reed, Dr. Carl Williams, and Ed Salzveld, thanks for listening, and we hope you found today a reason to believe the Bible.